Good morning, Melanie. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning. How are you doing? Hello from Michigan.
Hello from Michigan. So you are officially a, what do you call it? Michiganite or
I believe Michigander, I believe the term is. I don't want to please I'm still learning. I don't want to say it incorrectly. I believe it's called a Michigander, but
Michigander. Okay,
I will double check and people can comment below if it's wrong.
you're gonna have to, okay, Michigander, and then you're gonna be doing this or like, okay,
Right
like,
hands,
right,
face forward, fall forward, bam, right there. That's where I am.
already fitting in. So
Yeah.
welcome, welcome everybody to Designing Healthy Environments. My name is Alicia Ponce. I am the founder and principal of AP Monarch, where we are architects and sustainability consultants designing healthy environments. And this morning, I have the pleasure of speaking with Melanie Moore. So, Melanie, she is a proven change agent in the environmental field with decades of experience spanning roles from educator to Midwest Field Director for the Union of Concerned Scientists. Her accomplishments helped to shape energy policy in the state of Illinois and protected the coveted Chicago lakefront. Yes. More recently, she has served as a consultant on several key issues areas, including environmental advocacy, energy, and climate adaptation. In her new role at the Mott Foundation, Melanie will be focusing on freshwater issues. She received her BS degree from Hampton University and a Master of Science in Environmental Science and Public Policy from the University of Chicago Harris School of Public Policy. I worked on that project as a
You
sustain.
worked on our building. It's very
Yeah,
nice.
yes. So Melanie prides herself on integrating quantitative analysis and an equity framework in her professional practice. Melanie enjoys gardening, baking, cycling, yoga, traveling, and genealogy. I enjoy a lot of those things too.
Mhm.
And let's not forget, she is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority.
Right. My God.
Oh, so you have this going on, you have that going
I have a lot of hats. I have
on.
several hats. I change them out.
So, Melanie, you are now in Michigan. You have left Chicago to do so that you can continue doing amazing work in environmental policy. Um, First, I want to know what was it that got you into the field of sustainability and environmental policy?
Yeah, well, I don't even remember a set time of actually getting into the field. It's just been a way of life for me. I can always remember having to recycle my our trash as a young child before I could even walk. We always had recycling, so we had to keep that separate. And with the blue bins and all that stuff. And so it's really been more of a lifestyle with my family that I was just indoctrinated into, more so than, oh, I'm going to be an environmentalist. It's more so like I've lived that lifestyle. And before it was designated as sustainability, I did not coin the term. But before it was designated as sustainability, I've been living that lifestyle, and so it's nothing where there's a set starting point. It just started with life, but in general, I've always excelled in science, and that's always been part of the curriculum. Is sustainability is kind of integrated within the school curriculum with science, and so we learned about the issues that were coming up even when I was younger. I remember giving reports on climate change. I'm like, wow, that's going to be so different. Now I'm like, it is. Like more intense storms. They're like, oh, there's 5 trees down on my block now. This is what we were talking about when I was giving this report as a young child about climate change, but it was called global warming back then.
Right.
There was
Hmm.
no set starting point. As I realized what sustainability was, I had always been doing it, and so I just put moved more into that and tried to integrate it with the work that I did in general because I was doing it personally. So I just have gravitated towards that because I've always excelled in the sciences, and my parents also encouraged it. So
I think that's when I met you. We met through environmentalists of color in one of the meetings. When was it now? Like 5 years ago,
it's a
maybe.
lot.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, and just an amazing group of individuals doing great work, and founded in Chicago, right? And so it's just a very diverse group, from you, like, working on policy. There's attorneys, there's architects, there's just, you name it,
This
and there's
activist too. Yeah.
activists. And I remember meeting you.
Everything
You're like,
people.
I'm a scientist. I was like, a
I
scientist.
know.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then so sustainability is one thing, right? But then environmental policy for me then is just like up a notch, where you take care of the business, really, and
Yeah.
you
Well,
really help ensure that all of us have the same protection for air and water. And talk a little bit about that. What is
yeah.
environmental policy?
It was funny because my interest in policy started. I used to work at the clerk's office, the clerk of the circuit court of Cook County. It was my first job out of college. So I majored in marine and environmental science at Hampton University. I thought I was going to be the next Jacques Cousteau and do oceanography, and come to find out that I had motion sickness. And I didn't realize it because when I'm on Lake Michigan, the water's always calm because you can't get out of the harbor. And so I was on the ocean and I was like, oh, this is not going to happen. So I was like, I'll go back home, no worries. I had the environmental science piece within my degree. I couldn't find a job in the major initially. They said I was overqualified for the jobs I was applying for because I had a degree, and they had like, mostly volunteer and low paying positions, and they didn't want someone with a degree doing that work, but I was trying to get my foot in the field. So I ended up working for Dorothy Brown. I had a connection through my mother, where she just sent me to go register people to vote, and it turned into eventually being a job. And so I worked for the clerk of the circuit court, even though it wasn't related to my field. But on lunchtime, I covered for the director of policy there. And all he did all day, his name was Squire Lance, he was very well connected with Harold Washington. All he did was talk to people all day. And I watch him. He went through and have people in his office, and all he did was sit and talk to people. And I'm like, okay, I can do this work and be a minion and do all this stuff, but I noticed that the policymakers are the ones who make the decision, and they have the access to the decision making process. And I was like, all he does is talk to people all day. I can do that. I'm going to look into policy. And the thing is, I was like, I feel like there's room to move the envelope within the environment. And so I'm going to look at environmental policy. So I started researching schools, and the University of Chicago came up. There was a special program. I have a degree where I have a master's of science in environmental science and public policy. So I already had the science piece fulfilled. And so I was coming in with experience, which gave me a competitive advantage for that program. I happen to be the only student in the program. so,
Oh,
so
wow.
it's just like, I guess, but they offered it, and there were very few other schools in the Chicagoland area that offered that combination. I also was looking at school in Indiana University as well, but purely because of convenience, I decided to go to the University of Chicago once I got in.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was just interested in the policy pieces. So because I work for Squire, I was like, let me look more and investigate this, and it really
Hmm.
paid off because I'm actually a natural at it.
No, you are.
And you really can have the biggest impact, like when you change policy, because you can make pass legislation and have sweeping changes and really make a difference and move the envelope, and in a way that advocacy, you run into the bottleneck of a decision maker, a lot of the
Mhm.
times. So
Right. And I learned that, as an architect, we just want to build buildings, but me specifically, I wanted to build healthy buildings that were good for the
and
environment, that
that's governed by a body.
performed well.
Mhm.
We're talking about renewable energy and carbon smart materials. And with green building, that's why I love it so much, is that we come across then more issues on, like, you start to question things. Well, why can't I,
Mhm, mhm.
harvest water here? Why can't I do that?
There's a
When
rule against that. There's a law against that. It's prohibited because of blah, blah, blah. We don't want people spilling it and contaminating XYZ. And it's like, okay, but can you put in a rule that makes it acceptable in this particular way with precautions added? So yes, and I realized policy was it's like you ask questions, you're like, well, why is it this way? And it's, well, that's the way it's always been, but why does it have to continue this way? We can
hmm
change this, and people are super comfortable with the way it's been, but the way you move the needle is by making new rules and asking those questions of why can't we do this.
Yeah, I mean that's such a like a huge impact, like a huge aha moment. And then I was like, well, why don't I go into policy? It's just like, but then there's people like you, that we work with to be able to make these positive changes. So, I
You
mean,
have
it's
to love it. It's really
hmm
intense work, and a lot of times you're away from your family, and a state house is not where you live, and so you have to. It gets really intense, and you have to. A lot of it is based on relationships, and so of course,
hmm
like you go at first, and they're like whatever, but then they keep seeing your face, and then they get to know you, and or they keep ignoring you, as in my case, and
oh, it's
you keep
Melanie
coming to
again.
the door, keep coming to the door, then you wait for your window. It's funny. I love going to the state house because I'm like, this is totally legalized stalking, basically.
Rather than that title of legalized stalker, you're an environmentalist policymaker.
They're policy. They call it it's legalized stalking.
Legalized stalking. Don't give them any ideas.
No, but it's a set amount of time when they're in session. Now, if it's not session, that's another problem. But when they're in session, you could, no. I
So
thought it was fun. It was fun because it was my job to spot the legislators because I was on the team of people. And so
uh-huh.
at one point we were like, we gotta find this guy. And I was like, oh, we just walked past. Like the guy that's in the picture here, he just walked past us. They're like, run. I was like, I was just spotted. And I was like, wait, who's next? I was like, wait, we just passed back there going to the lunchroom.
So you've got it. And there have been many examples of how you used your knowledge and how you have changed policy. Like in terms of in the bio that I read, there's a Chicago lakefront, the work that you did for the Chicago lakefront.
Hmm.
And then there's also, not only did you work on the Chicago lakefront, but then you also did stuff for in regards to renewable energy. Can you
Hmm.
talk about that, about
Sure,
those
sure. Yes.
two?
How does the open space advocate accidentally fall into the energy sector?
Yeah.
It was an accident, but actually, at the time when I was doing lakefront advocacy around the protect, it was like public trust work with the Chicago lakefront. I was part of the Illinois Environmental Council. I was my organization was a member, and so we did work that we called Lobby Day, where we went down to Springfield, Illinois, and had a set um, just a few talking points. We're going to cover set issues that they decided were the top issues for that year. It's just once a year. You go down and they ask the organizations to contribute as they best they can. And so I decided to participate to be a team player. At the time, we didn't have any policies, but I knew maybe in the next year we might have something coming down. So I just was checking out the Springfield scene with the group, and we had a great group. And I was partnered with Faith in Place at the time, and
Mhm.
we were part of a team, and we went to go talk about renewable portfolio standards, what they call RPS. On the bus going down, I was reading in the literature, and I noticed it talked a lot about clean energy, but in the talking points they were gave us, it talked about environmental benefits, but it wasn't talking about the jobs in a way that I thought would be able to best suit it. And so I just made a few suggestions. They asked us to take notes, and I wrote down suggestions. And I'm like, I feel like you should lead with the clean jobs. It literally had clean jobs written down in the primer 23 times. And I was like, I think you should call it the clean jobs bill because it basically is going to create these clean jobs that you're talking about. You
Mm.
have to lead with that and brand this as a jobs bill instead of as a renewable portfolio standard energy bill around, solar and wind. This is a jobs bill. And
Mhm.
so I just made the suggestion, they didn't have to listen, but so I think this will be better. Also, I feel like you should engage with the unions because they can get excited about this bill because it'll create jobs for the unions and the solar installers will get, trained, and there's a training program as part of it. And so I was like, I really feel like we should take a new approach to this and lead with the economics as opposed to leading with the environment, even though the environment is very important and that's the end game of reducing climate change, the impacts of climate change. That I really feel like we should lead with the economics first, and
Mhm.
also have other benefits, but really start with the economics of the number of jobs that this bill is going to create by increasing the amount of solar and wind in the state of Illinois. And so
Mm.
they did that, and it was a very successful campaign. Woo, woo.
Mm. You
They
created a win-win
definitely,
situation there.
yeah,
You
I'm all about win-win and win-win-wins.
right.
So it started out as a clean jobs bill, as I suggested, then it morphed into the Future Energy Jobs Bill, and then it morphed into the Future Energy Jobs Act. And so
Mhm.
that actual model about engaging unions and focusing on the economics first was replicated in several states. I believe now about 12 states now. And they've been successful taking that approach
Amazing.
and broadening from just environmental groups and broadening out to unions. And so that work has been a lot of fun and very rewarding to see states embracing renewables in a way that, in the end, we are increasing the amount of renewables, but also creating jobs. And you're creating those win-wins,
That's a
situations.
that's incredible because I mean, for us as architects, we are working to design buildings that perform efficiently, and the goal is to
I've been one
reduce
of them.
carbon, you
Yeah,
know, to
yeah,
reduce carbon emissions in in
yes.
the atmosphere. So, and it's a lot of innovation, and it's a lot of just collaboration as well to be able to come up with these solutions. And so that is incredible, all that this act or this bill that you passed helped pass is now being replicated across 10 to 12 states, you said.
I think we're up to 12 and maybe more. I've lost track. It's been about 4 years now. So, but I believe about at least 12 states. Like I know, I
Okay.
think Nevada, the last one, I think Maryland also did some more about that. That just within the Midwest, I know the model from Illinois was used in Michigan. And you modify it and change it to curtail to what your state is doing. And so they also did a little bit in Ohio, or they were trying to do more in Ohio
Mhm.
around similar work. It's morphed into something else, but what you do is you take the collaboration piece. So in Illinois, there were
Right.
about over 210 organizations collaborating to make this happen. And so you take the model, and then you curtail it to what your state and what will fly in your state and the assets that you have in your state.
Mhm. And so here we're talking about like, oh yes, I helped pass this bill for renewable energy, created jobs, but let's talk about like it's not that easy, okay? Let's
No, it's not. And the
it's
thing
not
is,
easy, but what are
well,
the
that was
yeah, go
year
ahead.
one. It took 4 years to pass it. So
Mhm.
that was just year one. And literally, I
Four
feel like
years.
some of it passed because I was just like, if if you pass this bill, I won't come back next session. Like next year, you won't see me. I won't bother you. You're like, really?
It's
I was
the
like, yeah. I was like,
bill.
if you vote yes, I will not be back. I will be, I'll be gone. They're like, oh, right.
All right, where's that pen? Let's sign on right now. So what are some of the key factors that play into, how to get to that point to having it signed into a bill, like when it comes to access to open space and clean water? Now, let's switch a little bit over to open
For
space and
sure.
clean water. What are these key factors that help?
Yeah, well, there's like different key factors in my advocacy work around open space. A lot of times there's community engagement involved with it. And what I've noticed in when you're working doing advocacy work, it's there's been a trend around just kind of pushing work forward and not integrating community in the work. But I base the work that I've done off of what they do in LEED, and you in the LEED. So LEED is basically for energy efficiency and other things. You can probably better explain it than me
Mm-hmm.
because you're more of the expert than I am. But
Mm-hmm.
I took a page from LEED, and I noticed that in the LEED process, it's an integrated design, and so you put the lead factors in from the beginning before you even create the design for the facility. And so it's like it's used throughout, it's integrated throughout the process. And so um when thinking about like modeling community engagement, it's easier to engage the community earlier in the process before the building is even designed or whatever the entity is. It's easier to engage the community about, hey, this is the invitation. We're thinking about doing this project in your neighborhood. We would love for you to co-design it with us. This is what we're thinking. What do you think? What do you think works? What, and then allow the community to bring ideas and say, oh, we would like this. We would like third. We would like this. And it's
Mm-hmm.
historically it's been proven that the when you're dealing with like developments in particular communities, the buildings that do the outreach to the community earlier have been more successful, and they've gotten community buy-in at a way and support at a level that when developers just come in and say, this is the building and this is the design that's been approved here, and it's kind of forced on people, that then you get that pushback. But it's easier to invite the
Right.
community to actually do engagement and not this fake thing where they just have one public meeting and invite 7 people to make comments. And
Yeah.
so that's just what feedback and some of the work that I did around advocacy and open space, that it's easier to integrate community engagement at the beginning and really be authentic with it, and really be open to what communities are saying, because they have that indigenous intelligence that
Mm-hmm.
people just discount communities as though they don't know, that they haven't lived there for 30 and 40 years and they don't have valuable information, and that can make your buildings cool. Like some of the projects I think it was some in like Lawndale in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
where they created like a building and they just said, "Oh, what do you want?" And they're like, "Oh, we just want community space on the ground level to have events." And it's just one room of your thousands and thousands of square feet, and they open it up for the community to have events there for a very
Mm-hmm.
affordable rate or even free. You just have to sign up or whatever. That's a very low lift for a developer who's making millions and millions of dollars off of it.
Right. Right.
And so, and it helps to make the buildings edgy and cool. You know, you're like, oh, this is really cool. And so,
And
it's,
then it's something that the community feels proud of, right?
yeah,
If you have part in
we're
this
part of it.
project, then it's
Yeah,
like, you know what? I helped to create that. And
this is
for
our
those of
building. Right, right. Yeah.
yeah, that are watching, LEED is a leadership in energy environmental design, and so LEED is a green building certification where all parties, the whole project team, not just the builders and designers, but it's on the end users, and anybody that will use the building, have a touch point at the building, comes early to the table to collaborate and integrate, and it's a beautiful thing. I
Hmm.
mean, take the University of Chicago, for example. I mean, we did that where all everybody came to the table early, all of the expert knowledge came, rather than, oh, let's you and I talk about it and then let's go over here and over there.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, it's the first building on the University of Chicago campus to get LEED Platinum and Living Building Challenge
It's a
certification.
lovely building, by the way.
That's
I'm not biased because I'm an alum of.
Yeah, I remember talking to you about it, and they were giving you guys tours. I think you
Yeah,
had a virtual
yeah,
tour, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so it was just something to be, it's a great project, and that
Oh,
is,
students love the building. They say the students they never leave over the weekend. Like this is before
mhm,
COVID. The
yeah,
students would stay in the building over the weekends, and there's like no space, like all the rooms are reserved over the weekends. That's how much the students love the building, that they stay
That's
there on the weekends.
that's incredible. And that experience, with every project, I learned something new, and that's great, right? There's always a takeaway, but it's because we pursued the Living Building Challenge, that stepped it up a notch in terms of equity and transparency.
Hmm.
So it definitely just makes it, the end result is a beautiful project that the community is proud of, that students are using and don't want to leave. And it
Hmm.
performs well, less carbon
Yeah,
emissions. It's like win, 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 win. So,
yeah. No, I've been in the new grad building beforehand, and I remember I know it's a historic building. The same architect who built is it the Kennedy Center, I believe. It's a historic. So it's a point of interest. But I remember the lighting being really dark in there, and it was kind of like when I went in the room, I got struck with like almost like you feel like when you're in a haunted house, and you're like, like it was like really dark and
it
a
was
little
really
scary.
dark.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
a little scary in there, and I was just like, I was ready to go when I went in just to see, because it looked so ornate from the outside. Then went in the inside, it was just very dark and uninviting. And
Yeah,
so to see it open up and
uninspiring.
transform, and want to go to the building and the rooftop and hang out there is a
Hmm.
completely different experience.
Yeah, so we have a question here. Let's see. And I believe this is when we are talking about community engagement, and it says,
Sure.
let's see. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, but it's Sayatharan Alias. Sayatharan Alias asks, when are developers willing to listen to community asks and demands?
Well, I will give one example. I'm part of the One Woodlawn project. I live in Woodlawn. I grew up in Hyde Park, but I got priced out of Hyde Park, and so I moved south to Woodlawn, which is the south side of the University of Chicago campus. And so we saw what happened in Little Village, and I'm not sorry, Humboldt Park, how historically Puerto Rican neighborhood became gentrified, and the people who originally established the community were kind of forced out gradually. And so we saw that we saw the writing on the wall for Woodlawn. The Obama Presidential Library is going to be there. And so we saw what happened in Humboldt Park around the original members of the community being forced out and then gentrified into really development boom. And so what the neighborhood of Woodlawn did is we organized, and
Hmm.
we didn't even wait for the city. And as a community, they formed the One Woodlawn organization. And so we said, hey, first of all, we got all of our lots from the land. We have a land trust. We got all of the lots from the land bank earmarked to go not through the city, but through that entity. And we said, hey, we don't care what the city is saying. Any any development that's coming to Woodlawn, we just let it be known. The community needs to review it first. We don't care. We don't care what the city's saying. That Rahm Emanuel was still the mayor. We're just like, we're organized and we don't care. Any we are open to development, but any development that's coming to Woodlawn will go through community development, and we have a community council, and it's going to be approved through that. That's the only way you're getting development done in Woodlawn around this boundary line for the entire neighborhood. We let it be known. So we were picking developers that we wanted to invite to our community. So they listened because we did personal invitations. There was funding that was
Hmm.
provided, and they broke some grants, et cetera, to make that happen. But we as a community came up with a vision for our community first, and then we decided to invite developers into our neighborhood as opposed to the other way around, because it's not
Mm.
happening the way it historically has. And so developers listen to us because we don't, the bad actors who are, forcing folks out and sending out property values, that's not welcome for us in Woodlawn. We want to have a place, and there's enough space in Woodlawn. A third are vacant already. so that we can have market value housing as well as there's city lots, and then there's also people who have existing homes. So it's a third already.
Hmm.
So there's enough space for everyone to flourish, but we just have to do an interruption around just developers coming in, taking up all of the property. And we
Hmm.
made a choice to stop that from the beginning and let it be known. It's because we came together and organized. You have to be organized in order to get developers to listen, where people say, oh, we're not going to be able to do the old status quo here. These people are organized and they're not playing with us.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so if we
And it's
don't do
work.
this, it'll
It's all
impact our
work,
bottom.
right?
Huh?
I mean, it's all work and work that is worth it, right?
Yeah, and it's our community.
Yeah.
It's our community. After the developers are gone and they've made their money, it's still our community, and we'll have new residents there. But we have to organize, and it can't just be the same old way. We have to be proactive.
Hmm. Definitely. Lots of work that with a lot of passion, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just love how you connected all of this work from you started off talking about your childhood and your innate connection to nature or to
Hmm.
do to recycle and to just make it a
And
little better.
gardening, I did gardening as well.
Yeah. I mean, I have that same innate connection to nature. I mean, it's just natural that we do to protect our environment.
Yeah, they
My
call it tree huggers, but I make tree hugging too.
yeah, tree huggers, environmentalists, environmental scientists.
Yeah, but the thing that I didn't see is I didn't see people that looked like me that were
Yeah.
edgy and cool doing the work. I saw other people doing the work. And so in my work where I represented like scientists like Union of Concerned Scientists, you think of, oh, this nerdy person with stringy hair talking about data. But it's like, no, they hire consultants who are super savvy, who know their stuff to take the data and translate it in a way that makes sense to get the messaging across and to run campaigns around the work that they're
Right.
doing. So,
I mean, and that's important. What you just said is that a lot of the times, in our communities, there or people that are doing the work or are a scientist or an architect, like in our communities for women of color, we're either like in yours, well, let's say for ours, licensed architects in the U.S., there's less than 1%, Melanie, and it's because,
yeah, and 2%, as I was
yeah.
saying, 2% of
Hmm.
2% of black women in STEM. There's only 2% of the women in STEM sectors that are
Science.
black. And I heard that number, and it was like, are you serious? Only 2%. I thought there would have been more people, but in order to get a woman, a black woman, to have a master's degree in science, you have to do all that prep work at the front end. You can't just pluck someone from the street and
Hmm.
and have them effective in science. You have to be. It's like there's building blocks. It's almost like a cumulative exam where you take the whole year of the school work and then you have your final exam, and it builds off of the previous chapter. And so, in order to get STEM professionals on the back end, you have to have people who are savvy in science and understand it and can build off of the pieces. But a lot of times, the education system is not set up in a way that where you're finding students who are able to be successful, because it takes a lot of investment. And I'm not really good at math. You have to you have to overcome the not being good at math part and really be inquisitive, and you have to foster that
Hmm.
curiosity. Like if you have a very curious child, you may want to encourage them to go into the sciences, because that inquisitive nature fuels the scientific method. And so in order to do that and have the right instincts to excel in science, you have to have that nurture, because a lot of times in our education system, they want to teach for testing in a specific box here that doesn't necessarily work well for the sciences, where you have to insert creativity and say, okay, well, why can't we do it this way? And it's a lot of trial and error, but you have to have your brain set up a certain way
Hmm.
to test things. Whereas if we're teaching children in one way and not necessarily fostering as much creativity, it may be more stagnant. Or you may just say, I don't think I'm good at it, without even trying. And so she's
Right.
like, I don't see people doing that. I don't think I can do that. A lot of times in some communities, it's like you should be a doctor or a lawyer. So that's the only two things you can ever do in a career. But there's all these other jobs that people have no idea about. And it just so happened because I
Right.
grew up in Hyde Park, I was on the block with scientists who were working at UC. So I saw that and didn't think second nature of it, that that was
Yeah.
an option. It's viable. So
Yeah,
I
it's
it
just
took a little while to answer the
yeah, if
question.
you can't be it if you don't see
A
it.
lot of times you really need to see it in order to be it. So,
It's just later in my career, like what I was talking about earlier, is I just started, I wanted to do architecture, right? But then
mhm,
green building architecture, and then that question of why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? Well,
mhm,
then it connected it. I eventually found myself to the importance of environmental policy. And I'm like, I wish I knew as a kid what environmental policy
yes.
was, because I think I would have been doing that. So but here we are still working together, making an impact. So let's talk about where you're at now. Mott
Okay.
Foundation, they
Yes.
they were able to pull you over to Michigan. And
Yes.
can you talk about the work that you will be doing? And you're going to be
Yes.
doing an amazing job, I know it.
Yes, yes. So I'll be working at the Mott Foundation. I'm an associate program officer. I'll be in the department that handles addressing freshwater challenges. So I'll be working exclusively on Great Lakes issues, mostly around freshwater, clean water, water affordability, those type of pieces. And so there's a bunch of great grantees that are in the portfolio that I manage, and that I share with some of our colleagues in the department. Some of the work is international work um, with the Amazon. I'm on the team that handles the fresh water in the Midwest. Yeah,
Mm, wow, that is
it's exciting work.
that is truly exciting work. And I can't wait to hear about, how it goes and everything. And because you guys are doing, will you be looking at the, like Flint, for example,
Yeah,
the
so
water?
there's ongoing work. Some of our grantees are in Flint, and then there's also we have a Flint um, department at the Mott Foundation, and so sometimes we will collaborate on work in Flint. One thing that we're really proud of is there's a freshwater lab that they're creating,
Mm-hmm.
and it was supposed to open during COVID, but then COVID happened. But they actually they were awarded a water prize, and so it's a
Mm-hmm.
very prestigious water award. And basically, what they're doing is creating a community water testing lab because in Flint, Michigan, the trust was broken with the people. They are have a state of the art lab that's opening, and the community members are getting trained to test their own water to ensure that the water that they have in Flint is safe and that it's up to par and that there's no sidestepping or any backtracking around fresh water. And then also those kids will be able to go on to careers in fresh water because they can take that training
Mm,
that they get in the lab. But they're hoping to rebuild the trust with the community and know that what is being said by the decision makers is definitely what they're seeing in their taps as well. So it's a really exciting, innovative program. The people in charge there are super awesome. They're super proud of the lab, and once we get through this whole pandemic, it'll be up and running, and I'll share articles about it, and
great.
but yeah, it's a really great project, and I'll share more about it. If you want to learn more, you can go to the Mott.org, the Mott Foundation's website,
Okay.
and there's a couple of news clips about it on there.
We will definitely be following you in the work of the Mott Foundation. I have one more question for you. What from Facebook Live? What can we regular non-policy makers do to help make change happen?
Mhm. Well, a lot of times you will see petitions going around and you can sign on petitions. But one thing, especially facing some of the bigger issues that we're dealing with, is changing your behavior. So, just like, for example, in the pandemic, if you take responsibility and say, I'm going to wear my mask to change the behavior, if you talk to all of your friends and really talk to them about saying, hey, I want to make a difference. The way you make a difference is talk to 10 of your friends about whatever the issue, the behavior change that you want. to see. Or hey, I'm gonna turn my lights out, or I'm gonna not use water. I'm not gonna use my sprinkler system when it's raining outside, that type of thing. Or I'm going
I
to
see that all
wash,
the time.
yeah, wash my dishes at night, set the 4 hour delay timer and wash my dishes at night when no one else is using it, so that it's a cheaper price and it uses less water and when it's not a high demand time. So you can do a lot of things around behavior to figure out what's important to you and what you care about the most, and then talk to your friends about it. Also, you can talk, if you're in organizations, you can talk to the leadership of your organization, say, hey, I think we should do more around this. I think we should organize to do X, Y, and Z. A lot of times, people think that one of the most effective ways to make changes to do policy, but then and sometimes people have the power as well. And depending on what you have going on, sometimes you
Mhm.
can sidestep the policy process by being everyday people who are organizing to make a different change and different outcome. And so you can definitely do that. Like for me, which is something that's touching me personally with the pandemic, it's like with the children not being able to go to school, I'm like, if
Mhm.
the, in our society, childcare typically falls to the women. It's just like, if all of the moms just band together and put masks on their children and masks on their families, we can
Mhm.
get this under control. We just have to,
Right.
as women and mothers and sisters and aunts, say, hey, this is what we're doing. Starting September 1st, we're masking up and we're just going to get this under control so that, it may not be immediate, but later on, that we just, move the needle in a way that makes sense so that we can down the road have better outcomes. And so
Yeah.
you have a lot of power as an individual. You have to tap into it, and you can also organize on, Facebook or whatever. But you should be
Mhm.
organizing for good and not for bad.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, there's lots of tangible things that we can do in our own homes. I know that it just reminded me of, I have friends with the utility companies, and they are doing training to how to reduce your energy consumption, where they offer home kits. And I'll share that information too, because that training is happening right now for
Mhm.
homeowners. They have a kit to offer, and then there's like an online webinar that you're able to use resources. But Melanie, I want to thank you so much for your time this morning. Next week we have Molly Meyer. She is president and CEO of Omni Ecosystems, and we're going to talk about green roof farming and democratizing access to natural spaces. So, I mean, we're talking about open spaces with you and fresh water.
Mhm.
And so we're gonna go to the roofs. We're gonna raise the roof, and talk about green farming and green roof farming. But
Thank you,
you're gonna
Alicia, for
be
having me.
yes, you're gonna be sorely missed here in Chicago. But
I'm a
Michigan
phone
has
call
gained.
away. I'll be
Michigan
back and
has
forth. I'll be
Michigan. So
back
you're
and forth.
going from here to
Yeah.
there. I learned.
You can't do that without getting beat up. Sorry, Alicia.
um, but thank you so much. Yeah, you are a phone call away, and we'll be bugging you and for and following you on your great, amazing work. So once again, I am Alicia Ponce, the founder and principal of AP Monarch. We are architects and sustainability consultants, where we design healthy environments for you, for Earth, and for all. So have a healthy day, everyone. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining.
you. Have a good one.
Bye bye.